Hello everyone. This is tutorial 1 for digital signal processing. In this tutorial, we will discuss some question based upon the content that was covered in the first week of the lectures. So let me start with question number 1. It says, determine the fundamental frequency of the following discrete time signals. So we have been given a discrete time signal. First one is xn is equal to cos 2 pi n, and we have to determine its fundamental frequency. So first of all, we will find out the time period for this signal using this formula n is equal to 2 pi by omega naught, and that gives us n equals to 1. Then to calculate omega naught, we will again use this formula and we'll say omega naught is equal to 2 pi by n. That gives us 2 pi upon 1, which is 2 pi, and that is equivalent to 0. So in this particular case, when the signal is xn is equal to cos 2 pi n, we get the fundamental frequency as 2 pi or equivalently 0. So what does a 0 frequency mean? It means that, so for a discrete time signal, it would mean that this signal is constant. So if I plot this signal xn is equal to cos 2 pi n, it will be some magnitude that is constant for all the time samples. So what is important here is to note that omega naught equals to 2 pi or omega naught equals to 0 is the lowest possible frequency for discrete time sinusoids. And in that case, the signal will be a constant signal. Now, let's look at the second case. We have xn is equal to sine pi n. And again, we have to find out the frequency. So in this case, again, we'll first calculate the time period, which is 2 pi upon pi, that is 2. Then we use the same formula, omega naught is equal to 2 pi by n, to find out that the fundamental frequency is equal to pi in this case for this signal. So again, let's try to plot this signal. And when we do that, we will notice that it looks something like this. So it is uh, at every other time step, it has a, a opposite magnitude of the previous one, and that is because it has omega naught, or the fundamental frequency, equal to pi. So omega naught equals to pi is the highest possible frequency for discrete time sinusoids. So omega naught here actually varies from 0 to 2 pi, or equivalently from minus pi to pi. And in that 0 to 2 pi, the 0 and 2 pi corresponds to the lowest frequency. And we saw that in that case, we had a constant signal, while in the case when omega naught equals to pi, we get the highest possible frequency. And how do we visualize the frequency in uh, when we draw the signal? Then we see that it is visualized as the number of zero crossings. So in this case, since there is the highest possible frequency, every other in every other time step, the signal crosses the zero. So it goes from -1 to 1, and then again to -1, and so on. That's the highest possible frequency. And if it was the lowest case, then it would not have any zero crossing, or it would remain in its original form forever, and it would be constant. Okay, let's look at question number 2. In this question, we have been given an LTI system whose impulse response is this Hn. Now, a unit step input is applied to the system, and we have to compute the output Yn. Now, if so, basically, we have to compute a Yn when we have an LTI system. So we know that the output can be calculated by the convolution of the impulse response and the input signal, and that is what we will do. So first of all, it has been given that the input is a unit step input, and Hn is to be this sequence. So if we plot these two signals, So here plotting Hn with uh, at 0 time step the magnitude being 5, and this being the left side and this being the right side. This one being the left side and this one being the right sided values. And xn is equal to un is simply this signal. Now we have to take the convolution of these two signals. So the expression for the output will be given by either of these. Either I can add the time shift in impulse response or in the input signal. So in order to do that, let us use this one because it's easier to invert and shift the unit step. So we will go with this one and to calculate yn. So first of all, we need to flip x to find out x of minus a. So note that first thing in the convolution expression is that we replace the time from n to k. So now k is the symbol used for time. So for x of my calculating x of minus k, we just need to flip x of k about the y-axis, which will give us this signal. Right now we get a left-sided signal. And now we need to shift it by an amount n to the right. And that is this n is basically the time step at which we are observing the output. So in order to do that, let's say we are observing at y0. So that corresponds to n equals to 0. And so x n minus k is nothing but x of minus k itself for y0. And this is what x n minus k becomes. It's simply x minus k. And we have to now convolve this with hk. So when we do that, we simply have to take the products at each time steps and then add them together. So first I have to take the product of x of 0, which is this one, with h of 0, that is this one. And then x of 1 with h of minus 1. H of minus 1 is 2. And then x of 2, this one, with h of minus 2, which is 1. And then once we multiply all these impulses, we can add them to obtain y at 0, which is 1 into 5 plus 1 into 2 plus 1 into 1, and that is equal to 8. Now similarly we can calculate y1. So when we take y1, we are taking n is equal to 1, and this x of n minus k would become x of 1 minus k. That means the signal x of minus k is shifted by 1 to the right. Then we again convolve this with hk. So in this case, we take when we say k is equal to 1, which is this one, I'll get x of 0, and it will be convolved with h of 0, sorry, h of 1, right? Then when I take when I take k is equal to 0, that I get this one, which is x of 1, and it will be convolved with h of 0. Then finally, I'll have uh, x of 2 convolved with h of minus 1. And then we add them together to obtain y1 equals to 15. So similarly, we can calculate y for different values of n, and we will get this signal as the output. So this is how the convolution takes place for discrete time signals. Okay, now coming to the question number 3. Here we are given a difference equation, and we have to determine if the LTI system described by this difference equation is stable or not. So we have to tell whether the LTI system is stable or not. So since this is, so we know our notion of stability, which is the Bibo stability. It says that if the input is bounded, And if for that input the output is also bounded, then we say that the system is stable. So uh, first of all, we need some solution for yn. So according to Bibo stability, we are assuming some input x of n that is bounded in amplitude. So its amplitude is bounded by some value m of x, which is finite for all n. And we have to calculate, first of all, we have to calculate the solution of yn so that we can then see whether it is bounded or not. So first of all, we need to solve this difference equation. And we know that difference equations can be solved recursively. So we start with putting n equals to 0, which gives us y0. Then for n equals to 1, we obtain y1, which is in terms of y0. So this recursive process means that we can substitute y0 from the previously calculated value to get this value. And similarly, we can calculate y2 and so on, so that finally yn is in terms of yn minus 1, and yn minus 1 will be in terms of yn minus 2, and so on. So it gives us a final expression of yn like this, where n is greater than equal to 0. And now that we have got an expression, this is basically the solution to the difference equation. And we will try to find out its magnitude and see whether it is bounded or not. So the magnitude is taking the magnitude of RHS, and that is less than or equal to the magnitude of this first term plus the magnitude of this second term. Okay, so here this is the x, or the input signal. And we know that the input signal has an upper bound of m of x. So we just replace this part, we bring it outside, and basically the sum of this is bounded by m of x. And so we replace this here, and the remaining part, which is sum of 0 to n a raised to the power k, is nothing but, we know the GPA expression for this, which will give us this part. And this is the upper bound for the output signal, and we can call it some my. And now we have to show that my is a finite scalar quantity. So to see that, we can observe from here that only when the magnitude of a is less than 1 is that when n goes to infinity, we will have the term a raised to the power n go to 0. And in that case, this term will go to 0. And this part, mod of a raised to the power n minus 1, will also become 0. And we will get that my becomes simply mx by 1 minus mod a, which is bounded. So we can say that the output is bounded only when magnitude of a is less than 1. So the system is stable when magnitude of a is less than 1. Now coming to the fourth question. In this question, we are given two impulse responses of two linear time invariant systems, and we are told that these two systems are in cascade. And we are supposed to determine the impulse response of this cascade arrangement. So we use the associative property of convolution, which says that if we have two systems, two LTI systems in cascade, then we can find out an equivalent system represented by the convolution of the impulse responses of these two systems. So when we have to find out the resulting impulse response, we just need to take the convolution of these two individual impulse responses. So I'll just write the expression here. HFN is H1n convolution with H2n, which in terms of the summation is written like this. Now, when I substitute H1k and H2k into this expression, I get this. Now we can make use of this right-handed, right-sided nature of uk and un minus k. In order to further simplify this summation, we can say that h of n is non-zero only when k is greater than equal to 0 and n minus k is greater than equal to 0, which tells us that k is between 0 to n. And using this, we can modify this summation to lie from 0 to n instead of from minus infinity to infinity. And this is the resulting expression for h of n. Now from this expression, we can take out 1 by 4 raised to the power n because it is independent of k, and we are left with this part. And for this, we know the expression already, that it is equal to summation k is equal to 0 to n, 2 raised to the power k is equal to 2 raised to the power n plus 1 minus 1. So this is h of n for all n greater than equal to 0. Finally, let's come to the last question. And this question says that we have to determine the condition under which the input signal xt is equal to cos omega naught t is eigenfunction of an LTI system. So the first thing to note here is that here we are talking about a continuous time system and not a discrete time system. And for continuous time systems, we know that exponentials, complex exponentials are the eigenfunctions for any LTI system. In this case, we have some cosine function, and we have to find out whether or not it is an eigenfunction and when it is an eigenfunction. So that means that we are applying cos omega naught t as the input, and we are interested to see when the output will only be a scalar times this input for what category of systems. So generally the output will be uh, h of t convolved with cos omega naught t. For that, I have this expression in terms of this integral since it is in continuous time. Now we have cos omega naught t minus tau, which is cos a minus b, and I can expand it in this form cos a cos b plus sin a sin b, which gives me the sum of these two integrals. Now I can take cos omega naught t common from here outside the integral, and sin omega naught t outside the integral from this one, because the integration variable is tau, and we get yt equal to this. Now what we are interested in is that when will yt only be equal to some scalar times the input, because only then will cos omega naught t be an eigenfunction of this system. So for that, we observe that if ht is even, then what happens is that this second integral, which is made up of an even function, a product of an even and an odd function. If ht is even, then this product will become an odd function, and the integral of an odd function over these limits will converge to 0. So if the second term of the integral goes to 0, we are only left with the first term, which is this one. And this is nothing but h omega naught times cos omega naught t. So I've said that if this integral is equal to h omega naught, some scalar times cos omega naught t, then we can see that the output has become some scalar times cos omega naught t, and cos omega naught t is therefore the eigenfunction for an LTI system. So to conclude, cos omega naught t is an eigenfunction only when ht is an even function. Only then we can say that output will be some scalar times cos omega naught t. So with this, we reach the end of tutorial 1. Thank you.